Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so this is our fourth episode of Fun with Heroes. Okay, I hope you are enjoying. Okay, don't take too much burden. ये इसको भी याद रखना है, ये करना है. No, it's a fun thing. Okay, and somewhere down the line you will come across the names. It's between travel or you are reading a book and then you will remember those names. Okay, these are the names we discuss something. So this week we are going to cover uh, heroes who were born between October 19 to October 25. Is it the current week? Okay, so let's see who are these. Now, as usual, okay, can you tell me any name out of these seven? Anyone? You can unmute and tell me. Okay. Do you identify anyone?
No.
Anyone? Okay. Okay. Aditi, Mahika, Dhani. Okay. Who is this lady? Okay, there are three ladies actually here. Anyone? Okay. Yeah. So these are the unknown heroes actually, and mostly we'll be talking about. Yeah. So I understand this is a bit difficult. Okay. But hopefully by the end of the 30 minutes, you will know these names. Okay. So let's start. Okay. The first name that we are going to cover is a Matangini Hazra. Okay. Now, who was she? Okay. So Matangini Hazra was born in a small town of Hogar near Tamluk in Bengal Presidency. So that time the Bengal was a unified Bengal, which included the current West Bengal plus Bangladesh. Okay, so she was born in the Tamluk district, which is on the eastern side of present Kolkata actually. So she was born there and she spent her life there only. Yeah. Some accounts mention her date as a 17th November. Some account mention it as a 19th October. So we consider it as the 19th October right now to cover her story. Okay. She did not obtain formal education because she was from a very poor background, and as per the traditions that then she was married off quite early. Okay, and by the age of 18, she was a widow. Okay, and that time it was very difficult to live such a life, but she was a very strong woman, and she decided to do a social service. So she did a lot of social service in her local town. Okay, she was deeply inspired by the freedom movement that time going on, especially the non-cooperation movement started by Gandhiji. So she was deeply inspired by that thing. She started participation in those satyagrahas in her district. She started leading those satyagrahas. So after the Salt March or Dandi March in 1930, similar protests were held across the country. Okay, so in Tamluk, she did the similar Salt March. Okay, and she was arrested for breaking that law in 1932. Okay, उसके बाद उसको रिलीज कर दिया, but she was again arrested for some other protest. This time protesting against the Chowkidari Act. Okay, and that's how she continued with the satyagraha throughout the 1930s and 1940s. Okay, she also started wearing the khadi and serving the poor. Okay. She was called Gandhi Buri in Bengali, meaning old lady Gandhi in her local town. Okay, the lady, she was called a lady Gandhi. In Bengali, it is called Gandhi Buri. Okay, in her local town. Now on August 8, 1942,
I have a doubt.
yeah.
Which was the year she was born?
Yeah, okay. She was born, okay, I didn't mention that. She was born on 19th October 1870. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so she was very old by that time. Okay, as the main story comes, which is right now. That is, on 8th August 1942, the Quit India movement was launched by Congress. That okay. Now immediately after that, on the second day, all the leaders were arrested. So the volunteers took the protest to the streets, and across the country at various places the protest started. Okay, so similarly in Tamluk, there was a protest led by Matangini Hazara. Okay, she was 73-year-old then. Okay, and she led a procession of 6,000 volunteers, mostly women. Okay, in Tamluk towards the police station. Their purpose was to take over the police station and free Tamluk and establish the home rule. So India level पे तो होना जब होगा तब होगा, but they wanted to free Tamluk, okay, from the British Raj. So that she led a procession of 6,000 volunteers. Now, obviously, police didn't like that, and they tried to stop them. Okay, they gave them warnings. So Matangini came forward and to tell the police that to not fire on the volunteers, okay, who had come for the peaceful protest. But police didn't listen, and they opened the gunfire on the volunteers. So she was holding the tricolor, okay, Tiranga in her hand, and she was hit by the bullets. Okay, she was hit by 3 bullets. So she fell down chanting Vande Mataram. So Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram करके वो गिर गई, and she died there. Okay, but this act, okay, of her bravery, okay, is remembered till date, okay, in Bengal, especially in Bengal, and the place where this happened, okay, in 1977, at the same place, a statue of Matangini Hazara was erected at the exact spot, and this was the first statue of a woman in Bengal. Okay, and this is that statue. Okay, and this to honor her sacrifice in protest against the British. So that is the story of Matangini Hazara. Okay. The second story we have is of a Nain Singh Rawat. Okay. Now earlier we saw freedom fighter. Now this is completely different. Okay. So who was Nain Singh Rawat? So he is considered modern India's first explorer. Okay. And what did he do actually? So he was born on 21st October 1830 in a Miam village in the present day Uttarakhand. Okay, near India-China border. Okay. So this he was again from a very poor background, and he became a teacher in the local school when he grew up. Okay, and these people were used to crossing the borders and go inside the Chinese side, but China then, okay, or the Tibetan region then was a forbidden country. Okay? The outsiders had no idea what is going on inside. Okay. Now this was the time when British were doing something called the Great Trigonometric Survey of India. Okay, this was first such exercise that was carrying out. Okay, the map, India's map was being prepared. Okay, using trigonometry. The British had covered all the places. Okay, from north to from south to north. Okay, east to west, but they had no idea about this Tibet. Okay, and China. Okay, so what did they do? Okay, they hired Nain Singh and his cousin. Okay, and gave them a training. Okay, they went for a vigorous training. Okay, to become an explorer. They mastered the Tibetan language. They practiced the accurate measuring. Okay, through their footsteps. Okay, okay. So such was the accuracy that every step they would take will be the exact same, no matter when they take. Okay. So that's how they okay, learn this thing, and so through foot they will measure this thing. That this many amount of steps will be equal to 1 meter, and this many amount of step will be equal to 1 kilometer. So that's the kind of calculation they used. Okay. Then they disguised as monks, Tibetan monks, and they joined some other local people and went inside the Tibet. Okay, and they carried the survey instruments inside the prayer wheel and in the bags. Okay, and it was a very risky task because if you are caught and the charges are proven, then you will be dead. Okay, so then what happens is that in 1965, okay, this was the Tibet region. Okay, so they entered from the left side. Okay, in 1965, Nain Singh entered Tibet through Nepal and ultimately entered Lhasa, which was the capital of Tibet. So Nain Singh was the first non-Tibetan to visit Lhasa and the many legendary areas of the Tibet. and he counted each step and maintained the account of distance he traveled. And then he will note down in a small piece of paper, which he will hide inside the prayer wheel. Okay. He was caught, but he was let off. Okay. Luckily. After coming back on the second voyage, Nansing explored Western Tibet. Okay. That is this side of the Tibet. Okay. And he came across the fabled gold mine that is Thok Jalung. Okay. Which was a mysterious gold mine. Everyone heard about that thing, but no one knew where it is. And he was the first one to reach there. Okay. Outside of Tibet. Then in the last voyage, the map is of the last journey actually is that he traveled from Lhasa to Tawang. Okay, that is currently in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, from Lhasa to Tawang, he traveled along the the river. Okay, at that time, people knew there is a river in Tibet called Sangpo, and then there is a river in Assam and West Bengal, the Bengal presidency, which is called Brahmaputra. But no one knew they are the same river. So Nansing's journey come from the fact that Sangpo and Brahmaputra are actually the same river. He traveled along that path. Okay, and he confirmed that thing. He was the first one to confirm that thing. That they are actually the same river. Okay. He even measured the height of Lhasa.
What is
Okay.
Sangpo?
Sangpo is the how the Brahmaputra is named is called in China or in Tibet. Okay, in Tibetan language it is called Sangpo. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that time it was considered to be two separate rivers. Okay, there is one Sangpo which is flowing in Tibet, and then there is one Brahmaputra which is flowing in Assam. But then Nansing established that they are actually the same river. Okay, and he also measured the height of Lhasa. Okay, which was of course Tibet is anyway it's called the roof of the earth. So Lhasa is a very heighted place. So he measured the height of Lhasa using very basic instrument because he was in a disguise, right? He didn't have so many facilities. He measured the height, and the height that he measured is very accurate. Okay, compared to the height that was measured after 100 years using the advanced instruments. Okay, so that was the kind of amazing things that Nansing did. And based on the information collected by Nansing's walking explorations, British surveyor Montgomery, who was in charge of the trigonometric survey of India, was able to create the accurate map of India and Tibet. Okay. And after that, of course, his work became famous and he received a lot of awards and financial support. And then he lived a very useful life. So whenever you see the map of Tibet, remember Nansing, because he was the first one to discover that area. Okay. Yeah. Then next, the story is of Ashfaq-Ullah Khan. Again, freedom fighter, a revolutionary. So Ashfaq-Ullah Khan was born in Shahjahanpur of
So how was he a revolutionary?
Okay, I'll talk about that part. I'll talk about that. Okay, we'll go through that story. Okay, yeah. So he was born in Uttar Pradesh in a place called Shahjahanpur on 22nd October 1900. Okay. Now, when he was very young, 19 years of old, he joined the non-cooperation movement that was started in 1919 by Gandhiji. Okay. So the movement was going on where it was a peaceful movement where they boycotted the British goods. Okay, so the young people also left the British colleges and they participated in the freedom struggle. In 1922, the movement was called off after the Chauri Chaura incident that happened. Right. So the people like Ashfaq-Ullah Khan were dejected. Okay, so they became a revolutionaries. They started the armed struggle. Now they didn't want to do the non-violent struggle. They thought that this is not going to prove useful. So Ashfaq-Ullah Khan, then Ram Prasad Bismil, Roshan Singh, even then later on Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, the others. That's how that is how they became the revolutionaries. They started the armed struggles against the British. Okay, Ashfaq was also a poet. He wrote poetry under the pen names of Warsi and Hazrat. Okay, and normally the money that they will get from such publication of such poems, they will use for the armed struggles, okay, to buy the guns and other material. Okay, so he became revolutionary and joined the armed struggle along with Ram Prasad Bismil. Ashfaqullah Khan founded Hindustan Republican Association (HRA). HRA was a base of lot of revolutionaries that later became the HSRA. Okay, so revolutionaries needed funds now to buy arms, ammunition to carry out their activities. They, of course, they needed material to make bombs, guns. Okay, so they needed money. Okay, so from where they will get the money? Okay? They will not get any donation kind of thing. So they planned a Kakori train robbery. Okay, so they thought about looting the British. So on 9th August 1925, Ashfaq, along with other revolutionaries of HRA, executed the plan to loot the government treasury in a train. So in a train, government will shift the gold and some money. Okay, so that plan to loot the compartment. Okay, so they stopped the train coming from Saharanpur near Kakori. Now Kakori is a small railway station just before Lucknow. Okay, so they stopped the train, they pulled the chain. Okay, they stopped the train and then they carried out their robbery. Okay. Now, of course, as the robbery happened, okay, even Chandrasekhar Azad was involved in this robbery. Okay, they all fled in the different directions because the British police was on hunt for people. Okay, they didn't like this thing, so they were hunting for this thing. Unfortunately, most of the revolutionaries were caught. Okay, within a month after this robbery, most of them were caught. Ashfaq managed to escape and he hid in Banaras. Then he went to Bihar and finally went to Delhi. But in Delhi, he was arrested because someone informed police about his hideout. Yeah. So he was betrayed and he was arrested. After an 18-month long legal struggle, he was given a death sentence and he was hanged along with Ram Prasad Bismil, Roshan Singh and Rajendranath Lahiri. Yeah, ultimately they were hanged and he was Ashfaq was hanged on 19 December 1927 in Faizabad jail. So that is the role of the revolutionary act Ashfaqullah Khan did, and this is why these people are called revolutionaries who carried out the armed struggles against the British. Okay. The third we have, the fourth we have is a D.N. Wadia. Okay. He's a scientist. So he was born on 23rd October in Surat, which is in Gujarat. And he came from.
We had another person named Wadia in the last one, right?
Right, on the last one. Yes, we had that. And I was about to talk about that thing because both are related actually. The D.N. Wadia came from the same family of Dashir Kussaji Wadia. Okay, both are, the families are related actually. Both. Okay, so who was. Yeah, Dashir Kussaji Wadia, the story we read about, went to earlier, was the first modern engineer of India, right? He was in Bombay and he he created the first modern machine for India. Now, the D.N. Wadia, Dadashaw Wadia, basically his name was Dadashaw Narasimha Wadia, was a different type of engineer. He was a geologist. Okay, so he did his MSc in botany and geology from the Baroda College. And then he joined the Prince of Wales College in Jammu as a professor of geology and English. And after becoming a professor here, he did a lot of things. Basically, he used to go for the trekking in Himalaya during his vacations. Okay, and then he will collect the minerals, rocks, fossils. He would often take along his students for such trips. Okay, so consider like your teacher taking you for the treks, and then you learn about the rocks and fossils. So that was his method of teaching. Okay, what was important is that during such trekking and discovery, he found many rare fossils. Okay, and he climbed peak after peak in the Himalayas to understand the geographic structure. Okay, and the geology and how the Himalayas were formed. And the D.N. Wadia was the one who actually gave a lot of insight about the origins of Himalaya and how the valleys formed actually. Okay, that also gave insight about the different the lake formation there and the geological structure, especially that will be useful in the construction point of view there. Okay, any kind of construction if someone wants to do. So his studies were quite useful in that part. Okay, so he was one of the most celebrated geologists of India. In 1921, he became the first Indian without any European degree to be appointed in the Geological Survey of India, that is GSI. He became the first Indian, okay, to be appointed here. And why this work was important? Because his work led to the understanding of the geological history of the northwestern Kashmir. Okay, and there is a right now there is a museum there named after him in Jammu University. Okay, where all the fossils and everything that he collected and his research work is presented here. Okay, you can see in this.
What is his full name?
Did he dig for the fossils or did he find him like, lying around?
He did multiple things. Okay, so yeah, sometimes he would dig that thing. Sometimes he explored some of the peaks which were never explored by someone. Yeah, so he found some fossils. Of course, as a geologist, they will have to dig out something. Okay, you must have seen how they find the dinosaur fossils, right? They find something, then they dig out the surrounding area, and then find the entire bones or other places, right? Teeth and everything. Similarly,
So he dug for each and every fossil.
kind of, yes. He was not the only one, alone. Basically, he took his students, then he would guide them, right? So he did that. Yes.
What is his full name?
His full name was Daraso Nasova Wadia. Okay, very famously known as D.N. Wadia. Okay. He was a Parsi. Okay, he was by origin he was a Parsi. Okay. Now, so his work led to the geological history of northwestern Kashmir. He also discovered the existence of vast reservoir of sulfide ores of copper, nickel, lead, and zinc. Okay, so that is also very important discovery from where we'll get these minerals. So then government can take over that part and dig more to get the minerals like copper, nickel, zinc, okay, lead. Okay, he wrote a textbook called Geology of India, which is still considered a very important textbook in the geology. Okay, if you are studying geology, his book is still very much of importance. But, and he was responsible for the establishment of the Institute of Himalayan Geology in Dehradun. Okay, this is a very important institute. Okay, and did a lot of work. Actually, recently only we were seeing the Kedarnath documentary, and the people who actually did a survey of why that flood happened and all these things, that this institute actually did that work. It was named after D.N. Wadia. Okay. And apart from this geological survey, he also did the survey of the soil map across India. So he jointly published the first soil map of India. And why this is important? Then because based on this studies, scientific studies, farmers can know what to grow in which regions. Okay, because not everything you can grow at all the places, right? So this soil map was very important. Okay, so this gave a scientific dimension to Indian agriculture. So that is also very important work he did. Okay, so he was one of the greatest geologists of India who laid the foundation of geological investigations in India and received many awards and honors, including Padma Bhushan in 1958. Okay, in 1957 he was elected the Fellow of the Royal Society in London, which is again a very prestigious medal for a scientist. Okay, he was elected back in 1957. And there is a Wadia Institute of Natural History in the University of Jammu, showcasing the rare fossils discovered by him, which is the photo that I have mentioned here. So that is the work he did. He was one of the most celebrated geologists of India. Yeah. The next story we have is of Rani Chennamma, also called Kittur Chennamma. And she was born on 23rd October 1778 in Kakti village in the present Belgavi district of Karnataka. Okay. So, now her story is very similar to that of Rani Lakshmi Bai. You will see that. Okay. So she was trained in sword fighting, archery, horse riding during her childhood. Okay. And at the age of 15, she was married to Malsarja Desai, was the king of Kittur, okay, Raja of Kittur, and that's how she became the Rani of Kittur. Okay. Now her husband died in 1816, okay, and her only son also died in 1824. So the Kittur kingdom didn't have any heir. तो उसका वारिस नहीं था उसका, there was no prince. So she adopted Shivalingappa, a small child, and made him the prince. But there was something called the doctrine of lapse. What was that? So East India Company at that time, which was representing the British in India, had made some agreements with the small kingdoms, and Kittur was one of them. What was so troubling about such agreements is that if there is no heir to the kingdom, उसको चलाने वाला कोई नहीं है, so British will take over the kingdom. So that's what they try to do with the Kittur, because there is no heir now. Okay, there was no one, there was no king. So British said that we'll take over the Kittur. Obviously, Rani opposed that thing, because no one will give up the kingdom that way, right? So she sent a request to the British Viceroy, but it was rejected. So ultimately, there was a battle between Kittur and the East India Company in October 1824. Okay. Okay. Now, first battle between Kittur and the East India Company started in October 1824. It resulted in a heavy loss for the company. The English collector and political agent Saint John Thackeray was killed in the battle. Okay. So first war was won by the Queen. Okay.
What's the doctrine of lapse?
That's what I mentioned. Like doctrine of lapse was an agreement that East India Company did with the small kingdoms like Kittur. They also did the same with the Jhansi. We'll talk about that when we learn about the story of Rani Lakshmibai. So based on that, what will happen if the kingdom has no king, okay, or king dies, okay, they will take over the kingdom. British will take over the kingdom. Okay, so that's what the Rani opposed. Okay, because obviously everyone would like to have the freedom. So, but then there was a war between the East India Company and the Kittur army, which Kittur army won. The first war they won actually. Okay. She also released the British hostages captured during the war with the promise that there will not be another war. But obviously British betrayed that and they started another war. She was supported by Guru Siddhappa and Sangali Rayana in her war, who were her assistants or lieutenants in the army. Now, during the second war, Kittur army was defeated. Rani was captured by the British. And she was imprisoned in the Belhogal fort till her death. Okay. But Rani was the first woman freedom fighter against the British, long before Jhansi Ki Rani, right? Jhansi Ki Rani, when the Kittur war happened, Jhansi Ki Rani was just 3 years old. So, okay, so this act happened long before Jhansi Ki Rani, right? So she was the first woman freedom fighter against the British, and every year now in her memory, Kittur Utsav is celebrated. Okay, so in Karnataka, in the Kittur district, this Utsav is every year celebrated in October. Okay, between October 22.
So what happened to Kittur Chennamma?
She was captured by the British. And ultimately, she died in the prison. Okay, okay. After the second war, which she lost, she was captured, and then she died in the prison. Okay, but in her memory, the Kittur Utsav is celebrated every, and yeah. That's how she is remembered. There are a lot of songs written about her bravery. Okay, so the way we Jhansi Ki Rani is remembered, okay, she is also remembered, especially in Karnataka. Ideally, it should be remembered by everyone, right? She's her story is as good as Rani Lakshmibai. So we'll continue with this. So the next story is the story of Lakshmi Sehgal. Now, Lakshmi Sehgal was born as Lakshmi Swaminathan in the present day Tamil Nadu, in the Malabar district, which was a Madras presidency then, on 24th October 1914. She was an elder sister of Mrinalini Sarabhai, okay, a famous Indian classical dancer. So both are sisters actually. Her sister Mrinalini went on to become a very famous classical dancer of India. Now, Lakshmi was by profession, she was a doctor. She received an MBBS degree from Madras Medical College in 1938 and worked as a doctor in Chennai for some time. As a young doctor, she went to Singapore in 1940, where she met many Indian nationalists. Yeah. Now, this was the time when the World War II was going on, and there was a fight going on between the British and the Japanese soldiers in Singapore as well. Right. So she added. She added. Yeah. Now there's no participants. So she added many wounded Indians. And that's how she came to she came in contact with the Indian soldiers, okay, captured there as a prisoner of war. In 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose came to Singapore, okay, to take over the Indian National Army. Indian National Army was actually started by Mohan Singh a couple of years back, but it was on and Subhash Chandra Bose came in Singapore in 1943 to take over the Indian National Army and restart the army, resuming the activities of the army, okay, by having a tie-up with the Japanese. Okay. This is where she met, Lakshmi Sehgal met Subhash Chandra Bose. And she convinced Subhash Chandra Bose to have a separate women's regiment in Azad Hind Fauj. She convinced Subhash Chandra Bose. That's how the Rani of Jhansi regiment was formed in Indian National Army. That was the women's, the regiment of all the women within Azad Hind Fauj, and she became Captain Lakshmi. That is how she was known during her later part in life. Captain Lakshmi led over 15,000 trained women in Burma, okay, and they fought against the British forces. Okay. When Subhash Chandra Bose formed the provisional government of Azad Hind Fauj, okay, Captain Lakshmi was appointed as the Minister of Women's Affairs. Okay. But soon INA was defeated by British, okay, and they surrendered. Captain Lakshmi was arrested by British and she was ultimately brought to India. Yeah, then INA trials happened, and that is entirely a different story. But she was by 1947 she was released. Okay, all the INA soldiers were released by the British after a lot of public protest. In 1947, she married Colonel Prem Kumar Sehgal, who was also a colonel in the INA. Okay, so they got married and ultimately settled in Kanpur, and she continued her medical work and social service in Kanpur during the rest of her life. She actually did a lot of social work after that. She organized relief camps during the Bangladesh War in 1971. Okay. She also led a medical team when Bhopal gas tragedy happened in 1984. Right, there was a gas leak and very painful tragedy happened in Bhopal in 1984. So she led a medical team there. Okay, she remained active in social service throughout her life, and she was awarded India's second highest civilian honor, which is Padma Vibhushan, in 1998. Yeah, that's the life of Lakshmi Sehgal. And this is just how we see that Lakshmi Sehgal is with the Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay, observing the Rani of Jhansi regiment, yeah, during the days of INA. The last story we have is of S.K. Mitra. Okay. Now, he was again a scientist. He was a very famous scientist, and just to tell you, we have seen a lot of craters on Moon, right? Moon has a lot of craters, right? छोटे-छोटे खड्डे हैं, छोटे बड़े, and most of these craters are named, okay, by NASA and other institutes. And there is a particular crater on Moon which is named after S.K. Mitra, okay, which is the Mitra crater. And of course,
Another one also, Vikram Sarabhai.
Yes, there is another
What's
crater.
its name? That crater's name?
It's a
SK Mitra
no,
and Vikram Sarabhai.
no. Okay, so the name of the crater is the Mitra crater.
Until what is ionosphere?
Yeah, I'll talk about that thing. Okay, we are just getting started with the story. The name of the crater is the Mitra crater.
But there is Vikram Sarabhai also.
Yes, yes,
The name.
yes. There is also another crater by named after Vikram Sarabhai. Yes, yeah. So of course, he was also like Vikram Sarabhai. S.K. Mitra was also a great scientist. And now we'll see what he did actually. So his full name was Cecil Kumar Mitra. He was born in the Kunanagar in Bengal Presidency on 24th October 1890. Okay. Again, he had a very poor childhood. Actually, his father died and his mother raised him. And ultimately, after completing his education in Bhagalpur, he joined the Presidency College in Calcutta, which was a very prestigious college at that time. It is still actually. In prestigious college, he met Dr. C.V. Raman. Sir C.V. Raman, he met. And he was one of the first researcher under C.V. Raman actually that time. After completing his PhD there, he went to France. And in France, while doing his additional studies, he got interested in radio technology, which was a very new subject that time. Okay, radio science, radio technology, wireless technology, it was very new that time. He came back to India and he initiated research in these subjects in India. So he introduced wireless as a special subject in Calcutta University for the master's studies.
ठीक है जल्दी दो अब मैं
Yeah,
कहाँ बैठ कर करूँ
he set up a wireless laboratory in the Institute of Radio Physics and Electronics. Okay, in the Calcutta University, he set up a wireless laboratory. Okay, and that's how the wireless research actually started in India. Okay, please, everyone can go on mute. Actually, thank you. He initiated the wireless research in India. Okay, now why this is important? Okay, that research and the next research that he did, that ionospheric research. What is ionosphere? So, if you know, okay, probably you will learn in science in coming years. Okay, so this is Earth's surface, and there are different layers around the Earth, right? There is a atmospheric layer, then there is an ionosphere, and there is a stratosphere. Okay, so now ionosphere is very important. Why? Because the radio waves are reflected from the ionosphere. Okay, so all the communication, satellite communication that happens, right? Okay, all the mobile communication, we talk on the mobile, right? I call someone. Okay, so of course there are some waves going on. Okay, which will carrying my voice to that person and vice versa, and that all happens through this ionosphere layer. Okay, and Mitra was one of the pioneer scientists who established that the research in this area. Okay, without his work, actually, all the modern wireless technology wouldn't have been possible. Okay, he wrote a book called Upper Atmosphere, which is still considered the greatest reference material in the field of ionosphere. Okay, and the radio technology. So such was the impact of his work. Okay, long distance communication. Okay, what we are seeing right now. Okay, would not have been possible without his work in ionosphere and radio technology. So such was the important work done by him. Okay, you know which was the first satellite launch in the space? Sputnik, right, by Russia. Okay, Russia launched the first satellite, Sputnik. So Russian scientists who worked on that project of Sputnik also used Mitra's research, okay, for their reference. Okay, so his work also inspired the first satellite. Okay, so of course he received many awards and the honors for this work. He was elected to the fellowship of the Royal Society in 1958, and he was also selected as a national professor, which is very few scientists are given that honor in India. He became that in 1962 and was awarded Padma Bhushan in the same year. And as I mentioned, there is a crater on the moon named Mitra, okay, Mitra crater, in the memory of S.K. Mitra because of his birth. So whenever you talk on mobile or whenever you learn about the
So
wireless,
S.K. Mitra, he was a very famous scientist and he helped discover radio science.
yes, he did a lot of research in the radio science, wireless research. Yes, he was one of the pioneer scientists in that area. Okay, so he did a lot of for many years, I think for 4 decades, he did a lot of research into the area. All his work is summarized in this book, Upper Atmosphere, which is still considered a very reference material in this subject. Okay, and all the, as I mentioned, the long distance communication, whenever we talk on a mobile or any type of long distance communication is happening, the credit should go to one of the credit should go to SK Mitra. Yeah, and so remember his name. Okay, whenever we talk on mobile, right? SK Mitra. So that is the kind of work he did, and he is the last hero in our list today. So this I already mentioned how the electromagnetic fields travel and why the ionosphere is important and why the work done by Mitra is important. Now we know this name, right? Yes or no? Okay.
D.N. Wadia.
This is DN. This is DN Wadia.
Vittu Chennamma, right?
Kittur Chennamma. Yeah, Rani Chennamma is Kittur Chennamma here.
Kittur Chennamma. Then Lakshmi Sehgal.
Lakshmi Sehgal is here.
Then there was Ananya Pesada.
This is SK Mitra. This is SK Mitra.
DN. What was that? DN.
Wadia. This is DN Wadia.
DN Wadia.
And who is this? Who is this?
He is
Ashfaqullah.
Ashwa.
Yeah, Ashfaq, right? And who is this guy? The Tibet explorer.
What name? Something.
Man Singh Rawat.
Yeah. Rawat.
And
Will you be sending this PPT?
yes, I'll share actually the PowerPoint as well as the video recording. I'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
And she is Matangini Hazra, the first.
Mata.
Okay.
Yeah. First.
Don't try to remember this much. The material is anyway available.
No questions.
Yeah, there are questions. Okay, there is a quiz. Fun quiz. Just match the left and right.
Kittur Utsav is
Kittur Utsav is
Rani Chennamma.
Rani Chennamma.
yes. Kittur Utsav is after Rani Chennamma. Right. Okay.
Could you show that first picture there was in those pictures of the people in that PPT, the first slide?
This one.
The first slide. No, the first slide.
Which one?
The one in which all the pictures of each and every topic of ours of today was there.
Yes, this picture, right?
Yes, this.
Right. So this is Rani Chennamma. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Then the Kittur Utsav is associated with Rani Chennamma. Now second. Who was called Gandhipuri?
Gandhipuri. I think
Gandhipuri. Old Lady Gandhi.
Old Gandhi. But who was she? Rani Chennamma,
She
Matangini
was
Hazra.
Matangini Hazra.
Matangini Harsa.
Correct. Yeah. Matangini Hazra. Yeah.
It was so easy.
Yes. Now moon crater.
Moon crater, SK Mitra.
Right. This is easy, right? Yeah. Yeah. And who was leading the Rani of Jhansi regiment?
Kittur Chennamma.
Aruna Asaf Ali, Matangini Hazra, Kittur Chennamma, or Lakshmi Sehgal.
Lakshmi Sehgal.
Lakshmi Sehgal.
Correct. Lakshmi Sehgal, Rani of Jhansi regiment of Azad Hind Fauj. Okay, she was leading that regiment. Under Subhash Chandra Bose. Yes. Yeah, those are the things we have. I hope you enjoyed. Yes or no? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you and keep reading. Okay. This information is there. Okay. I normally share that on the social media and Telegram. You can get this anyway. I will share the presentation as well. Okay. So thank you. Okay. And have a nice day. Bye bye. So do you have any stories or questions?
Bye.
Yeah. Just. Uh, I think we will have that session kind of thing where you tell the stories. Okay, you read about some stories. Okay, and one of
This will be there every Saturday 10 to 11, right?
Mostly we'll try to conduct it on Sunday because Saturday some people have schools. But tomorrow actually I am
Okay.
not available, so that's why I keep it on Sunday. Okay, I will share the details. But I think one sub where you guys tell the stories. Okay, rather than I am telling the story.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. We'll do that. We'll share the information.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Super, super bye bye.